On Friday, a pretty important meeting happening among the Texas House Republican Caucus. Joining us on the phones this morning to talk about the meeting and what it could mean as far as the speaker's race moving forward. State Representative Matt Schaefer joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. And Representative Schaefer, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Chad. Guns up.
Yeah, and glad to talk to you and have you on the show. You, of course, you know this area quite well, don't you?
I do. I spent better part of a decade out there washing windows to get through undergraduate school at Texas Tech, and then later law school there, and watched my youngest brother play football under Mike Leach. Yeah, man, we're Red Raiders to the core in my house.
Excellent. Well, glad to have you on the program today. Y'all have a pretty big meeting coming up on Friday.
It's really big. I think the listeners need to understand that for many years, one of the big three, the Speaker of the Texas House, who is elected by the membership, by the 150 members, has basically been chosen in large part with a lot of Democrat influence. And we are trying to now put in a process that will change that.
So what will happen on Friday? What's the process that you are trying to, I guess, change in Austin?
Well, we are trying to make it so that Republicans get together and choose their candidate for Speaker before we take an official vote when the session begins. It's kind of like when we have our primary elections and we choose which Republican is going to go up against the Democrat in November. Republicans get together and we choose our Republican candidate, and then that candidate goes on to challenge a Democrat if one files. Now let me sort of frame this, Chad, if I can.
Yeah.
So since Texas has been a strong Republican majority state for so many years now, imagine if Republicans just started feeling sorry, really sorry for the Democrats. So for the next election for governor, Republicans said, all right, we will cancel the ballot in November where the Democrat candidate for governor always gets beat and has no chance. And instead, we just have a Republican primary election for governor, and whomever wins becomes governor. But this time, Republicans would say, Democrats, you can come over and vote to help us select our Republican who will be governor. Do you think if we had a process like that we would get a conservative like Greg Abbott for governor? Or would we get some anti-pro-life, pro-big government, anti-Second Amendment, left-leaning Republican in name only? That's essentially what has been happening is Republicans in the House, there's about 95 of us, we have been allowing the Democrats to have a say in who becomes Republican Speaker before we even have the election. And that's basically how Joe Straus, our current Speaker, became, how he came to power. Early on, back in 2009, a whole block of Democrats got together with a handful of Republicans and said, we'll choose the next Speaker. And they did not have a caucus vote of Republicans where we said, no, we're going to choose our candidate first. Our position, Chad, is that a Republican elected leader should first gain the confidence of fellow Republicans and then go and put him or herself in front of the whole body, the Texas House, and take the official vote. If the Democrats want to put up a candidate, fine. If they want to support the Republican candidate, that's fine too. But the process should start with Republicans. And in order to do that, we're going to have a vote on Friday inside the Republican caucus to change our bylaws so that we get into the pattern and routine that before every legislative session starts, Republicans will come together, will nominate candidates. Who wants to be Speaker? 3 or 4 guys? Okay, stand up there, give us a speech, tell us why you want to be Speaker, do some campaigning among the members, and we'll take a vote. And then whoever wins that myself, I'm a liberty-minded conservative. You know, if my candidate doesn't win, I'm going to say, you know what, I got beat. I'm going to support the Republican who wins in the caucus, and when he gets to the House floor, I'm going to support that man or woman, and we're going to get to work. But we haven't been doing that, and it's way past time to.
So you will support whoever is eventually, and this is a non-binding vote. So that means, I mean, people could, the Republican members of the caucus, they could still go and vote for whoever they want to. Correct on this, but let's just say, best case scenario, somebody within the Republican caucus is chosen. If they were not the most conservative person in the world, you're saying you would still vote for that person if that person won among Republican caucus voters? If
they gain the confidence of a majority of the Republican caucus first and go through that process, and my candidate doesn't win, I'm going to support whomever wins the Republican caucus. That's exactly right. Because I think that is a better way to have leadership, and it's a better way to govern once the session starts.
If, let's say Speaker Strauss were to run again, do you think he would win in a caucus vote?
I think he would have a very strong challenger or two. And I think that it's he would probably come up short this time. I think there's a huge amount of fatigue even among his own supporters.
Well, okay, then I'll ask you. I guess there are a few names that have been floated out there for Price, among others, who were close to Speaker Joe Strauss. Do you think they have a shot at winning this?
Well, it's yet to be seen. We have been really from the I'm chairman of the Texas Freedom Caucus.
Right.
We've been very focused on the process before we even get to whether we talk about a person. Now, a simple way to look at it is the center of the Republican caucus is more conservative than the center of the Texas House. Okay? And Joe Strauss was definitely coming from the center of the Texas House, which included all the Democrats, and not the center of the Republican caucus. I mean, Joe Strauss had positioned himself against Lieutenant Governor Patrick and against Greg Abbott's agenda. What does that tell you? He was taking a whole lot of influence from the Democrats. Joe Strauss opposed the Sanctuary Cities bill. Joe Strauss supported Roe v. Wade. There's just a lot of principles that he held that are out of step with the Republican caucus by and large. So I think that you're going to see a candidate or two that comes from the more conservative side of the Republican caucus, and there's going to be a strong competition. This is the first time since 1993 that we have had an open race for Speaker in the Texas House.
We're visiting with Representative Matt Schaefer here on the Chad Hasty Show about Friday's meeting among the Texas House Republican Caucus. Do you think we've seen, obviously, as being part of the Texas Freedom Caucus, there's divisions among the Republicans, and you're talking about unity. Do you think that we're going to see a unified Republican Party come out of this after Friday? Do you really think we're going to see that?
I think that you have already seen some remarkable improvement in the Republican caucus in the Texas House by the fact that we've even gotten to the point where we agreed to take this vote on Friday. I mean, we unanimously voted within the caucus to start this process. So I think there's already been some improvement, and I think that since we have a chance at new leadership, unity is our focus. It really is. There's always going to be divisions based on principle, but if you have a process and sort of this internal natural struggle that's healthy, where candidates compete for the support of their members, and then somebody emerges at the top as the winner before the session starts, then you've got a chance to begin day one of the session with a clean slate, and a good process that was followed will lead to a potentially great Republican speaker.
I want to get your thoughts on the Texas Republican Party. they've submitted the open records request with the offices of every member in the Texas House as party officials. They're trying to figure out who is complaining about the state's campaign finance regulator about the party's speaker commitment form. In the Houston Chronicle, they've got a big story out on this today. It kind of got, I think, swept up a little bit or swept under the rug during the Thanksgiving holiday. But this is obviously something, it sounds like at least one or two members of the Texas Republican Party, not two, or at least the Republican House Caucus, not too happy about this commitment form. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Republican Party platform calls for us to choose our speaker candidate from among ourselves first. And so Chairman Dickey is doing the absolutely right thing. He is asking Republican candidates to pledge to support the Republican candidate. So he's asking Republican members of the House, will you pledge to support the party platform, and whomever wins in a caucus vote, that you will support that candidate on the House floor. That's exactly the right thing to do. You know who doesn't want this process? Democrats. If you have looked to see who has been complaining and crying the loudest since Joe Strauss said he's not coming back, it's the Democrats. It's Wendy Davis. It's Beto O'Rourke. It's all these Democrat leaders and House members. They are wringing their hands. They are, tearing their clothes because they're afraid that for the first time Republicans are actually going to get their act together and decide who their candidate's going to be without them. Now, you know what? I would encourage the Democrats to run their own candidate.
They probably wouldn't win that one. Well, who knows? Who knows what we'll see? It's a non-binding vote. I know that, and so I don't think who knows? It may be a done deal on Friday. It may not be. We'll see who all lives up to their word, because that's a lot of this, right? Who lives up to their word after Friday.
And who shows up. We've got to have a large amount of participation on Friday to meet the vote thresholds. We need at least 64 votes to change the bylaws. So, I would hope every citizen listening to this is asking their state representative, if he or she is a Republican, are you going to show up to the meeting in Austin on Friday, and will you be voting yes for this process? I think there's strong support for it out there, but Democrats are already working behind the scenes to try to peel off some of these Republicans and offer them a deal. That's already happening.
Yeah. Representative Schaefer, I appreciate your time today, and we'll visit with you after Friday, okay?
Chad, thank you so much for the time.
All right, thank you. That's State Representative Matt Schaefer here on the Chad Hasty Show.